they didn't have a single reliable database of addresses. Each public service had its own database of addresses. All of them were inaccurate. So the fire service would be called out to a fire at a certain address, and they would quite often go to the wrong place because their address database was inaccurate. So they're now making a 70-to-1 return on investment by having a single reliable government database and making that available to everyone to use, public sector and business. Government spending and procurement, where's the money going? Again, very valuable data. And weather data, very valuable for all sorts of things, for disaster management, for agriculture, for transport. All, again, data that permeates everywhere. And the transport information that I'm talking about. Exploited so far mainly in urban context. Right? It's a question about what data on rural transport and rural means getting across the market. It's not just about publishing new data. One of the things we found here is actually a lot of data is already available on websites, but how do people know that it's there? We found in the UK sometimes the data was published, it's accessible, but it wasn't in a format where it could be reused. It was sometimes published but with restrictions on how it would be used. Sometimes it was published but really only aimed at specialist groups, sometimes within the same sector. Sometimes you had to pay for it. Sometimes the data would be made available if you asked for it, but the government wasn't saying it actually had that data unless you particularly thought it must have that data when you asked for it. And sometimes it's just difficult to find, buried deep in the website in a misleading way. Very important to create sustainable applications. You get a lot of hackathons or bright ideas, but how do you make that use sustainable? Is there any way to sustain that you're really going to get the value from that? And really, the sustainable applications are driven by how often the data is used and how important that data is and how immediate that data is to the person who's using it. So national budget data published annually on a national basis. It's interesting for research, for some researchers and commentators and the like, but the average person in the city street or in the rural village isn't going to be very interested in that much of the time. It's data about schools, it's data about hospitals and health, it's data about transport. It's very immediate to people. It's data about individual crops and local farming. That really close to people, individual users of that data. It's data that people use regularly or even daily. And it's data which influences important decisions. There's a not-for-profit in the UK called My Society, who are a group of people who look at how to use data and technology for civic purposes. And they do things like you can find out what your local member of parliament has been doing. You can use the Right to Information Act, and you can report problems in your local environment, such as a road needing maintenance or street lights that are out of action. And they concentrate on doing things that matter to people. Very immediate, that matter to individual people in their community or very, very local communities. They make it quick and easy to call for action, to report the problem, to do it while people are still upset, motivated to do something. They use location a lot. They use a lot of the UK government's map data, so people don't plot the problem on a map. That they can use a mobile device which knows where it is. They use very simple design. They're very simple websites, very easy to use, very accessible, very simple language. They build in community support, action, and stickiness. So if you report a problem with in your road, perhaps a street lights that are out of action, then others in your community can chime in and support the action for that. You can see the problems that have been reported in your community, and you can see whether the local government have taken action on that. And indeed, it works by reporting whether the problem has been fixed. And you get reminders. If there hasn't been an update on the problem after 4 weeks, you get an email or an SMS saying, if this problem has been fixed, please report that it's been fixed. And if it hasn't been fixed after 12 weeks, you get some instructions on how to escalate it with your local council or your local entity. So building in community action. And finally, they do it by, they're social entrepreneurs. They're helped by IT people. They're not actually led by geeks, they're social entrepreneurs. And finally on this, I'd say, open data doesn't have to be delivered digitally. So when we started in the UK, the first hackathon we had, we thought we had lots of cool smartphone applications. And someone just produced a newspaper, which had the data that was relevant to your local community, the performance of local services, where local service access points were. In Liberia, the government published the budget as open data. And someone put up this blackboard in the main square in Monrovia, which explained that, visualized that data for citizens. So I'm running out of time, so let's skip through some of the technical stuff here. But I just wanted to talk about what we've seen very briefly in the last few days working with CERN. And just show how in India and in rural development, we're already somewhere along that route. So the real thing is how do you turn that data into use? Because this is the health and nutrition management information system. And it's already got an icon where you can download the data. So it's not just about access to the data, it's about getting it in a reusable format. It says export to Excel. And indeed you get a spreadsheet which is very processable, and you can start to do analysis and your own visualizations of that. In the international scale of sort of data publishing it in a proprietary format like Excel gets 2 stars. It's reusable, but only if you've got Excel. So we generally don't want to force people to buy a particular software product in order to use the data. We prefer data to be in open formats that anybody can use with any software. Actually, when I delved into this, because I got a warning message when I tried to launch a spreadsheet, the data is not in Excel spreadsheet, in Excel format. It's actually in HTML format, which is an open format. So that's actually 3 stars for this data on rural development already. Another test is what's used for the International Open Data Census, and here the data exists, yes, it's in digital form, it's publicly available, you don't have to pay for it, it's available online, it's in a machine-readable format, it's openly licensed and no restrictions on it, and it's up to date. The only caveat is that you can't download all of it. You've got to drill down and get a particular table for a particular district or a particular mandal. But that's easily fixed. That's just a technical issue rather than policy issues about that. So again, a very, very good base on which to build. What does need to be done in order to get the data used is to build and leverage the open data ecosystem. The resources both within government and outside government, which are about the use of data, about driving innovation with data. The data is there. A lot of the data is there. It's actually about how getting that to use. And to do that, government needs to play in multiple roles. Yes, government needs to supply data. It's government's data, it's going to make that data findable, accessible, and so on. The government needs to be a leader of data and open data. So at all levels of government, and in public services and semi-independent services, the government needs to lead up the opening of that data. The government needs to be a catalyst for getting the use of that data, to encourage it, to incubate it. So in the United States, each department has a mission to engage with business on how its data can be used for economic advantage. In the UK, we've set up something called the Open Data Institute, which is specifically about getting business innovation and incubating startups using the government's data. And finally, the government needs to be a user of its own data. And by making the data openly available, other parts of the government can use that, can find it, can relate data from different departments into solving problems that are, some of the most difficult problems are actually problems that are linked together. So, but government works in silos, so opening up the data allows that data to be brought together into focused action to solve deep-rooted and long-running policy issues for government. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that's given you some ideas on how the data can be used. As I said, it's not, don't get transfixed by the open. It's really about how do we use that government data that already exists and investments are being put into and create more of it to really solve the problems that are here. And that requires innovation, working within government and the wider community. Thank you very much.
Now we are waiting for the tea. Please have started the lobby and we'll be assembling at 10:50. I request you to take the tea breaks and let's come back.
Authorities have actually stopped doing their own applications. They say, well, there are 500 that other people are doing. Why should we pay for one? We're very unlikely to be able to make one better than all of those 500. Combining data, and this is one of, government is often in silos. And when the data is published, people start to make connections. And this is Irene Chogi, a data journalist with a TV station in Kenya, who's actually a graduate of a World Bank data journalism boot camp. And based on what she learned, she started to think about why girls underachieve in rural Kenyan schools. And she took the data from the education system and saw that actually their underachievement was linked to underattendance. The girls underachieve because they don't actually they stop attending school. Why do they stop attending school? So she started to investigate that, and girls relatively, or boys stop attending schools because the toilet facilities are unacceptable and they prefer to stay at home. And so why are the toilet facilities so poor? What is being spent? What is provided for maintenance? And there was a budget for maintenance, and she tracks down that the budget is not actually being spent on the maintenance of the schools as it should be. So that actually linking data on budgets, data on health, data on school performance makes a story and starts to drive change, get political momentum behind that. Opening data means that the data is used much more. And this is quite, you think you open it and it will be used little more. This is a case study of the statistics agency in Germany, who used to charge for their data, and they changed their policy in 2008 and made it free to download. And almost immediately there was an explosion in the use of that data. The number of downloads went up by 800%. The users of the data actually went up by 1800%. And this example came from a study that was done in the European Union by Deloitte, out that the number of users in all the cases they looked at went up by a factor of 10 to a factor of 100. You know, there was much more reuse. What's more, the data was being reused by a different type of company and users, in particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, startups were actually getting access to the data because they didn't have to pay up front for the data. And they could explore the data and find new innovative uses for it without actually having to commit money to start. And they also found that as governments organised and publishing the data became routine, it actually didn't add to the costs of government. We're seeing a whole range of open data businesses being tracked in the United States. There's something called the Open Data 500 where they're tracking 500 businesses that are using open data and investigating those characteristics. We're tracking about 250 in the UK. And there are some different business models starting to emerge. One business model is aggregating data. So data's on different government websites. It's sometimes organised by the structure of government rather than the structure of use. So there are companies like Data Publica in France who run data from all sorts of sources and become a one-stop shop for businesses who want to use data. In the UK, there's a company called Placer who are a one-stop shop for transport information. So for Heathrow Airport, for ground transportation at Heathrow Airport, roads, rail, metro, buses, Heathrow Airport used Placer to consolidate all that information for them to provide a single integrated information service to passengers. There's a whole range of developers making applications using that data, creating employment in that, innovating uses of that data, and often catering to overlapping, catering to different niches, competing for audience attention of those who want to do things with data. The companies that are probably making the most money out of data are those that take the data and apply analytics and smarts to that, and then provide a value-added service, advisory service, or sometimes a financial service. So Climate Corporation started in 2006, basically uses, initially focused in the United States. It took free weather data for several decades, 1 million observation points in the United States. It took 60 years worth of crop yield data, farm by farm in the United States, and it took 14 terabytes of soil quality data. And they used big data analytics on that to be able to model which variety of which plant, which crop, in which field would give what yield, and start advising the farmers that this would be a better variety of crops, or why don't they switch to this other crop which would make them more money. And they offered crop insurance with that, guaranteeing a minimum income, because they could model that insurance with all the climate data, and they knew the variability. And they were bought out for $930 million by Monsanto. And they're also enablers. There's a whole ecosystem of people providing data services. Firms making a business out of that, like Socrata and like Cloudera. So which data is most valuable, most widely valuable? Census and other detailed statistics are very valuable. In the UK, it's estimated that the census is worth £300 million a year to businesses alone. That alone is value for planning public services and the like. So that's £3 billion for every 10-year census. And the more detailed, the more valuable the data is. Maps and geospatial data, I think it's estimated that 80% of government data has some geospatial reference in it, latitude, longitude, or a name of a place or an administrative area. So being able to plot it on the map and use actually often geospatial data to tie data on health, data on agriculture, data on education.